Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you decide. Yet for years, you've been taught the opposite. You were told to prepare more, think more, and wait until you feel ready. But the truth is, that moment never comes. The longer you wait, the louder your doubts become, and the smaller your actions get. Fear doesn't disappear with time. It grows in silence. Self-doubt doesn't fade on its own. It feeds on hesitation, and without realizing it, you begin to build a life around avoidance instead of action. Opportunities are missed, words are left unspoken, and decisions are delayed. All because you're waiting for a feeling that was never meant to come. First, real confidence works differently. It doesn't show up before action. It is created because of it. It is built in the moments when you move forward, despite uncertainty. When you speak even with a shaking voice. When you decide without having all the answers. This is what I call dangerous confidence. The ability to act without needing certainty, approval, or perfect conditions. In this audiobook, we will break down the patterns that keep you stuck and replace them with principles that force you into action. You will learn how to stop overthinking, make faster decisions, use fear as fuel, and build a level of self-trust that cannot be shaken. Step by step, you will begin to see that confidence is not a personality trait. It is a skill you train. This is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming unstoppable, even when fear is present. It is about eliminating hesitation and building a mindset that moves forward. No matter what, let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop waiting to feel ready. Take action first. A powerful life begins the moment you stop negotiating with hesitation. Right now, there are things you know you should be doing. Calls you should make, ideas you should start, decisions you should take. But something keeps holding you back. That something often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait a little longer, to prepare a bit more, to feel more confident before you begin. But that voice is not wisdom. It is fear wearing a calm and reasonable mask. Readiness is one of the biggest illusions ever created. It feels real, but it has no clear definition. How do you actually know when you're ready? What does it feel like? Most people can't answer that. And yet, they keep waiting for it. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and sometimes even years pass while they stand still, convincing themselves they're just not ready yet. The truth is, readiness is not something you discover. It is something you create by moving forward. Think about every skill you've ever developed in your life. You didn't start because you felt ready. You started because you had no other choice, or because you simply took the first step. Confidence didn't come before the action. It came after you tried, adjusted, failed, and tried again. Action is what builds belief. Without action, confidence remains nothing more than an idea. Waiting to feel ready is dangerous because it trains your mind to delay. Every time you hesitate, you reinforce a pattern. Your brain learns that hesitation is the default response to uncertainty over time. This becomes automatic. You don't even realize it anymore. You just feel stuck. Opportunities appear, but instead of moving toward them, you analyze them, question them, and eventually watch them pass. Not because you lack ability, but because you've trained yourself to wait. Now, here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start asking, "What is the smallest action I can take right now?" That one question changes everything. It removes pressure. It removes perfection. It removes the illusion that you need to have everything figured out. Instead of focusing on the entire journey, you focus on the next step. And once you take that step, something powerful happens. You gain momentum. Momentum is the real source of confidence. Not thinking, not planning, not waiting, moving. When you take action, even a small one, you send a message to your brain, I act, and that identity begins to form. The more you act, the stronger that identity becomes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits, and you start seeing yourself as someone who moves. That shift alone can change the direction of your entire life. You also need to understand that clarity comes after action, not before it. Many people believe they need to have a clear plan before they begin, but clarity is a result, not a requirement. You figure things out by doing, not by thinking endlessly. Action gives you feedback. It shows you what works, what doesn't, what needs to change. Without action, you're stuck in theory. With action, you enter reality. There will never be a perfect moment. Conditions will never be fully aligned. You will never feel 100% certain. And that's not a problem. It's the way life works. The people who move forward are not the ones who feel ready. They are the ones who decide to act despite not feeling ready. They understand that discomfort is part of progress, not a sign to stop. So, from this point forward, to make a simple rule for yourself, act before you feel ready. When you catch yourself hesitating, don't negotiate with it. Move. Take the step, send the message, start the task, speak the words, break the pattern immediately. The longer you wait, the stronger hesitation becomes. The faster you act, the weaker it gets. This is where dangerous confidence begins, not in big dramatic moments, but in small, consistent decisions to act without permission from your emotions. You don't need to eliminate fear to move. You just need to stop obeying it. And once you do that, you'll realize something powerful. The version of you you've been waiting to become only exists on the other side of action. Stop waiting. Start moving. That is the first code. Chapter 2. Kill the habit of overthinking. Decide faster. Clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from thinking less and deciding faster. Overthinking feels productive because your mind is busy, but in reality, it keeps you trapped in a loop where nothing moves forward. You replay scenarios, analyze possibilities, and search for the perfect answer. But the more you think, the more uncertain you become. What starts as a desire to make the right decision slowly turns into a habit of avoiding any decision at all. Overthinking is not intelligence. It is fear trying to protect you from making a mistake. Your mind is wired to keep you safe, not to make you successful. So when you face uncertainty, it tries to calculate every possible outcome to avoid risk. But life doesn't work that way. You cannot predict everything. You cannot control every variable. And the attempt to do so only delays action, drains energy, and weakens your confidence. Every time you overthink, you send a signal to yourself. I don't trust my judgment. That message gets repeated again and again until it becomes your identity. You start believing that you are someone who needs more time, more information, more certainty. But the truth is, you already know more than enough to take the next step. The problem is not a lack of knowledge. It is a lack of decision. Decisiveness is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained. It begins with understanding that no decision will ever be perfect. There will always be unknowns. There will always be risks. Waiting for perfect certainty is a guaranteed way to stay stuck. Instead, you must learn to make the best decision you can with the information you have, and then move speed is your advantage. The faster you decide, the faster you learn, and the faster you learn, the faster you improve. People who move quickly are not always right, but they are always progressing. People who overthink may avoid mistakes in the short term, but they also avoid growth in the long term. Progress belongs to those who act, not those who analyze endlessly. You also need to recognize the hidden cost of delay. Every decision you avoid creates mental weight. It sits in the back of your mind, taking up space and draining your focus. This is why overthinkers often feel overwhelmed. They are carrying too many unfinished decisions. When you start deciding quickly, you clear that mental clutter. You free up energy, you create momentum. One powerful shift you can make is to set a limit on how long you allow yourself to think. Give yourself a short window, minutes, not days, to evaluate your options. Then decide. This forces your brain to focus on what matters. Instead of wandering through endless possibilities, it also trains you to trust your instincts instead of doubting them. Another key is to simplify your decisions. Not everything deserves deep analysis. In fact, most daily decisions are low risk and reversible. You can adjust, correct, and improve as you go. But when you treat every decision as if it will define your entire life, you create unnecessary pressure. That pressure leads to hesitation, and hesitation leads to inaction. Confidence grows when you see yourself making decisions and handling the results, even if a decision turns out to be wrong. You gain something valuable: experience. You learn what doesn't work. You refine your judgment. And, most importantly, you prove to yourself that you can handle uncertainty. That is real confidence. You must also learn to separate thinking from acting. Thinking has its place, but it should lead to action, not replace it. A simple rule you can follow is this: once you've thought about something enough to understand the basics, it's time to act. Do not let thinking become your escape. Use it as a tool, not a hiding place. There will be moments when your mind tries to pull you back into the loop. It will say, "What if this goes wrong?" Or "What if there's a better option?" In those moments, remind yourself that doing something is always better than doing nothing. Action gives you direction. Inaction keeps you stuck. Deciding faster does not mean being careless. It means being willing to move forward without needing perfect certainty. It means trusting that you can figure things out along the way. It means accepting that mistakes are part of progress, not something to be avoided at all costs. The people who build strong confidence are not the ones who always make the right decisions. They are the ones who make decisions quickly and adapt just as quickly. They don't waste time questioning themselves after every choice. They move, adjust, and keep going. So from now on, stop giving your doubts unlimited time to speak. Limit your thinking. Make the call. Take the step. Send the message. Choose a direction and commit to it. Because confidence is not built in moments of perfect clarity. It is built in moments of decisive action. Kill the habit of overthinking, and you will unlock a level of freedom most people never experience. Chapter 3. Make fear your signal, not your stop sign. Fear is not the enemy you've been taught to avoid. It is the signal you've been trained to misunderstand. Every time you feel that tightness in your chest, that hesitation before speaking, that urge to step back instead of forward, your instinct tells you to stop. But what if that feeling is not a warning to retreat, but a sign that you're exactly where you need to be? Fear shows up at the edge of growth. It appears when you're about to do something unfamiliar, something uncertain, something that could change your life. It does not show up when you are safe, comfortable, and repeating the same patterns. That means if you never feel fear, you are probably not moving forward. You are staying within the limits of what you already know. And those limits will eventually define your entire life. The problem is not fear itself, it is your relationship with it. Most people treat fear like a stop sign. The moment they feel it, they slow down, hesitate, and often turn back. Over time, this reaction becomes automatic. Fear appears, and without thinking they obey it. They don't question it. They don't challenge it. They simply follow it. And in doing so, they unknowingly shrink their own potential. But fear is not always telling the truth. It exaggerates risk. It magnifies consequences. It creates scenarios that feel real, but are often far from reality. Your mind is trying to protect you, but it does so by limiting you. It would rather keep you safe and stuck than uncertain and growing. If you allow fear to guide your decisions, your life will always be built around avoidance. Now imagine flipping that pattern. Instead of seeing fear as a reason to stop, you begin to see it as a signal to move. The moment you feel it, you recognize it as a marker. This matters. This is where growth is. That shift alone can change everything. Fear no longer controls you. It directs you toward opportunity. Think about the moments you've avoided in your life. The conversation you didn't start. The idea you didn't pursue. The risk you didn't take. In almost every case, fear was present. And because you listened to it, those moments passed. But what if instead of stepping back, you had stepped forward? What if you had used fear as a compass instead of a barrier? Acting in the presence of fear is the foundation of dangerous confidence. It is not about eliminating fear. It is about refusing to obey it. You will still feel nervous. Your voice may still shake. Your thoughts may still race. But you move anyway, and every time you do something powerful happens. You weaken fear's control over you. Fear loses power through exposure. The more you face it, the more familiar it becomes. What once felt overwhelming starts to feel manageable. What once stopped you now barely slows you down. This is how confidence is built, not by avoiding fear, but by walking through it repeatedly until it no longer defines your actions. You also begin to realize that fear is often pointing towards something valuable. It shows up before important conversations, before big decisions, before meaningful changes. It does not appear randomly. It appears when something is at stake. And instead of seeing that as a reason to hesitate, you can see it as a reason to lean in. Another important truth is this: the cost of avoiding fear is always greater than the cost of facing it. When you avoid fear, you avoid growth, opportunity, and progress. You stay where you are, you repeat the same patterns, and over time that becomes your life. But when you face fear, even if you struggle, even if you make mistakes, you move forward, you expand your limits, you become stronger. You don't need to take massive leaps to apply this principle. Start small the next time you feel fear. Pause for a moment and recognize it. Don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Acknowledge it. Then take one step forward. It could be something simple, a message, a decision, a small action. What matters is not the size of the step, but the direction. As you repeat this process, you train your mind to respond differently. Fear no longer triggers avoidance. It triggers action. That is a complete shift in identity. You become someone who moves toward discomfort instead of away from it, and that identity will take you further than talent. intelligence, or luck ever could. There will always be fear. It will show up in new forms as you grow. But instead of seeing that as a problem, you begin to welcome it because now you understand what it means. It means you are expanding. It means you are stepping into something bigger. It means you are alive in the process of becoming more. So the next time fear appears, don't ask how to get rid of it. Ask what it's pointing you toward. Then take a step in that direction, not because you feel ready, but because you've decided that fear will no longer decide for you. Make fear your signal, not your stop sign. Chapter 4. Build proof through action, not words. Confidence does not come from what you say to yourself. It comes from what you show yourself. You can repeat affirmations every morning. Tell yourself that you are capable, strong, and ready. But if your actions don't support those words, your mind will not believe them. Your brain is not convinced by language alone. It is convinced by evidence, and that evidence is built through action. This is where many people go wrong. They focus on thinking differently before they start acting differently. They try to feel confident first, hoping that the feeling will push them into action. But the truth works in reverse. Action creates evidence, and evidence builds belief without that proof. Confidence remains fragile. It disappears the moment things get difficult, because it was never rooted in experience. Every action you take is a message to yourself. When you follow through on something, no matter how small, you tell your mind, I can trust myself. When you hesitate, delay, or avoid, you send the opposite message. Over time, these messages stack up. They form an identity. You either become someone who acts or someone who talks about acting. And that difference is everything. Think about how trust works in any relationship. You don't trust someone because they say the right things. You trust them because they consistently do what they say. The same rule applies to yourself. Self-trust is built through consistency, not intention. You don't gain confidence by promising to change. You gain it by proving again and again that you follow through. The most powerful way to build that proof is through small, repeated actions. You don't need to make dramatic changes overnight. In fact, trying to do too much too quickly often leads to failure, which weakens your belief. Instead, focus on actions that are simple but consistent. Show up when you say you will complete what you start. Take steps even when you don't feel like it. These small wins may seem insignificant, but they compound over time into something powerful. Each completed action becomes a piece of evidence. Each step forward strengthens your identity, and gradually you begin to see yourself differently. You stop questioning whether you are capable because you have proof. You stop doubting your ability to follow through because you've done it repeatedly. This is how real confidence is built, not through motivation but through evidence. You also need to understand that words can sometimes become a trap. Talking about your goals, planning endlessly, or imagining success can create a false sense of progress. It feels like you're moving forward, but nothing has actually changed. This can be dangerous because it satisfies your mind without requiring action. You feel good in the moment, but you remain stuck in the same place. Action, on the other hand, forces reality. It removes illusion. When you act, you see what works and what doesn't. You face resistance. You encounter challenges, but within those challenges, you gain something far more valuable than comfort. You gain experience. And experience is the foundation of confidence. There will be moments when your actions don't lead to immediate success. You may try something and fail. You may put in effort and not see results right away. This is where many people lose confidence, but only because they misunderstand the process. The goal is not perfection. The goal is proof. Even when you fail, you are still building evidence that you are someone who acts. That alone puts you ahead of those who never try. You must shift your focus from outcomes to consistency. Instead of asking, "Did this work?" ask, "Did I show up?" Because showing up is what builds identity. And identity is what sustains confidence. Results will come, but they are a byproduct of repeated action, not the starting point. Another important principle is to make your actions visible to yourself. Track your progress. Keep a record of what you've done. When doubt appears, and it will, you need something real to look back on. You need to remind yourself, "I've done this before, I can do it again." That reminder is not based on hope, it is based on evidence over time. Something begins to shift inside you. You no longer rely on motivation to act. You no longer wait for the right mood. Action becomes your default. And with that shift comes a deeper level of confidence, one that is not easily shaken because it is built on proof. This is the difference between fragile confidence and dangerous confidence. Fragile confidence depends on feelings. Dangerous confidence depends on evidence. It doesn't disappear when things get hard because it has been tested. It has been earned. So from this point forward, stop trying to convince yourself with words. Stop waiting to feel different. Start building proof. Take action, no matter how small. Follow through, no matter how simple. Show yourself again and again that you are someone who moves. Because in the end, you don't become confident by saying it. You become confident by proving it. Chapter 5. Detach from outcomes. Focus on action. Pressure is created the moment you tie your identity to the result. When every action feels like it must succeed, every step becomes heavier. You start thinking about what could go wrong, how others might judge you, and what failure might mean about you as a person. This is where hesitation is born, not from lack of ability, but from too much attachment to the outcome. The truth is, you cannot control outcomes. You can influence them. You can work toward them, but you cannot guarantee them. There are too many variables outside your control. Other people, timing, circumstances, unexpected events. When you focus entirely on results, you place your confidence on something unstable, and anything unstable will eventually create anxiety. This is why many people struggle to act. They are not afraid of the action itself. They are afraid of what the outcome might be. They want certainty before they begin. They want guarantees before they move. But life does not offer guarantees. It only offers opportunities, and those opportunities require action without assurance. Detaching from outcomes does not mean you stop caring. It means you shift your focus from what you cannot control to what you can. Your effort, your consistency, your decisions. These are within your control. When you anchor your attention there, something changes. The pressure decreases, the fear weakens, and action becomes easier. Think about the difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. When you are obsessed with winning, every move feels risky. You become cautious. You hold back. But when you focus on playing your best, regardless of the result, you become free. You take chances. You express yourself. You perform at a higher level because you are not weighed down by fear. The same principle applies to every area of your life. Whether you are starting a project, having a conversation, or making a decision, your job is not to guarantee success. Your job is to show up fully and take action. The result will follow its own path. But your responsibility is to act with intention and commitment. Attachment to outcomes also creates emotional instability. When things go well, you feel high. When they don't, you feel low. Your confidence rises and falls based on external results. This makes you unpredictable and inconsistent. But when you detach, you create stability. You remain focused regardless of what happens. You continue moving forward even when results are slow or uncertain. You must learn to measure progress differently. Instead of asking, "Did I succeed?" ask, "Did I take action?" Instead of asking, "Did this work?" ask, "Did I give my best effort?" These questions keep you grounded in what you control, and over time this mindset builds a deeper form of confidence, one that is not dependent on immediate success. Another benefit of detachment is clarity. When you are not emotionally tied to a specific outcome, you can see things more objectively. You can adjust your approach. You can learn from feedback. You can make better decisions. Because you are not blinded by the need for a particular result, you become flexible instead of rigid. It's important to understand that results still matter, but they are not the starting point. They are the consequence of consistent action. When you focus on action, results improve naturally. But when you focus only on results, action becomes difficult. That is why so many people stay stuck. They are chasing outcomes without building the habits that produce them. You will face moments where outcomes don't go your way. Plans will fail. Efforts will not always pay off immediately in those moments. Your ability to detach will determine whether you continue or stop. If you are attached, you will feel discouraged and pull back. If you are detached, you will adjust and keep moving. This does not mean ignoring your goals. It means approaching them with a different mindset. You still aim high. You still work hard, but you do not let the result define your worth or control your actions. You stay focused on the process, knowing that the process is what eventually leads to success. One of the simplest ways to practice this is to commit to action. Regardless of how you feel about the outcome, decide in advance that you will act. Whether you feel confident or not, whether the result is certain or not, this removes negotiation. It creates discipline, and discipline is what sustains action over time. When you detach from outcomes, you also free yourself from unnecessary fear. You stop worrying about things